So this is the works cited presentation. I've kind of made it as obnoxious as possible just to keep your attention as we go through this. I'm not going to lie, in-text citations and works cited pages, it's dry stuff, so try to stick with me while we go through it. It's not the thrilling adventure that that you might think it would be. Alright, so let's talk about why we have this system. We need a system for referencing sources through a parenthetical citation in essays and works cited pages. Pretty much we need to be able to know where someone got a particular piece of information. Okay, so we need a system for that. And the system is relatively simple when you consider all the information that needs to be presented for that. It also helps avoid plagiarism. Remember, if you properly cite, then you don't have to worry about being accused of plagiarism with your essays. Anytime you take someone else's words, you have to put that into quotations, and then you have to do a parenthetical so that we know where you got that information. Okay. We also enjoy making students do tedious work. It's something all teachers really enjoy doing. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry about that. All right. In-text citation. First of all, there are two systems I'm showing you in this presentation. The first is going to be the in-text citation. This is while you're writing the essay. This is what should be inside the essay. Okay. Whenever you're quoting, you should also put a parenthetical in it, and this is why it's also known as parenthetical citations. Okay. The format depends on the source of the medium and the entry in the works cited page. So we'll go over exactly what formats are appropriate for which case, and sometimes it's up to you to decide what format is proper. The most important thing is that there are two pieces of information that must be expressed: the page number and the name of the corresponding name to the works cited page. Okay, so when we get to the works cited page, that should make sense to you, but for now just follow the system as is explained. Okay, this is an example of what a works cited an in-text citation looks like. Many Americans are overweight, and then the quote: chances are every American has known someone who can be described as physically overweight. According to the latest research, at least 40% of Americans have weight problems during their lifetime, and 50% of them seek medical help. And then the author's name is Smith. There's a comma, and then the page number, and then there's a period. Remember that the period is always after. Okay, the period is always after the parenthetical, and remember the quotation mark is before the parenthetical. Okay. All right. So here's an example. Christopher Walken asked for more cowbell. Okay. So in this case, Christopher Walken is the author, and the quotation is more cowbell. The page number is on page 234. Okay. If you want to, you can try to not put in the author, and in that case the sentence might look something like: there was a need for more cowbell, and then the parenthetical Walken 234. Okay. All right. Sometimes there are no known authors. This can be troubling, but sometimes it happens. Usually, you notice it more with websites. So let's say a great man once asked for more cowbell. In this case, you would put in the title of the article. So let's pretend that this article was called More Cowbell, and the quote was more cowbell, and it was on page 6 of the article titled More Cowbell. Okay? Alright. Sometimes you'll end up with a citation that you want to use, but there are multiple particular authors of that type. So, for instance, let's say you cite a B walk-in and a C walk-in in the same article. Well, you need to be able to differentiate which walk-in said what. So, in this case, you would add that C period to walk-in, and it would clarify things. Okay. Let's see. Sometimes there are more than one author to a particular article or book. This happens often, so you're going to have to put in, all the authors' names, Walken, Miller, and Belushi, and then the page number. And you would say something like, the authors say, more cowbell. Okay? Let's move on to works cited pages. This is usually the thing that troubles most people. Most of you who haven't made a works cited page. MLA format is that the works cited page goes at the end of an article, end of an essay. Don't try to avoid making two documents. Just put in the works cited page at the end of your essay. It just makes it easier. It makes it easier for everyone involved. A lot of times I get essays submitted and they're two documents. You just try to put it all in one, okay? So the format is just works cited centered, okay? You don't have to put in your name, you don't have to put in the date, you don't have to put in the class information or whatever, okay? You just have to put in the works cited centered, okay? And then you put a list of citations in alphabetical order. So remember that when we do our works cited quiz. Here's an example of what it should look like. Okay, so notice the citations are in alphabetical order. Notice at the bottom there was an instance of they couldn't find the author's name, so they just credited to SIL International, okay, which is perfectly fine to do. Alright, here's an example for the format of a book. If you choose to cite a book, it would be last name, comma, first name, period, the title of the book, period. The title of the book should be in italics, city of publication, colon, publisher, comma, the year of publication, period, the medium of publication, period. Okay? So, it's a lot of information, but pretty much here's what you need. You need the title of the book. That's normally pretty easy to figure out. You need the author of the book. That's also pretty easy to figure out. You need the publisher. That's normally in the first few pages of a book. You'll notice the publisher, for instance, in this example, the publisher is Penguin. And then you'll look for the city it was published in. And then you'll look for the year that the book was published. And then the medium is always the same. It's going to be print. Okay? At least for a book. Alright, now for an article, it's a little different. So here's what the format for an article is. Author or authors, the title of the article, period, and that's all in quotation marks. Notice the quotation marks. The rule is if the title is a small piece like an article, then it should be in quotation marks. If it's a large piece like a book, then it should be in italics. So for articles, they should always be in quotation marks. Okay? Then the title of the journal. The title of the journal should be in italics. Okay? Title of the journal should be in italics. Then we should know the volume, and then the issue, and then we should know the year that it was published, and that should be in parentheticals, and then colon, and then the pages that the article was in within the journal, and then the medium of publication. Once again, is always going to be print for an article. Okay? So the example here, the title is called Conflicting Nationalisms, the Voice of Subaltern in Mahesweta Devi's Bashai Tudu, which I probably mangled, but you get the idea. That's the title of the article. Don't be scared off by the size of articles titles. Sometimes people have really long article titles. I can't tell you why. Tulsa Studies in Women's Literature is the title of the journal. Notice it's in italics. Then the volume, period, issue. Okay, so usually a journal will have been publishing through many years, and so often every year they'll switch to a different numbered volume. So the first year they were publishing, the volume would be 1, and so on. Okay, so Tulsa Studies in Women's Literature, it was the 15th year that this particular journal was publishing, and then issue 1.1, that's the issue number, and that was the first issue of that particular year. Okay, and that year was 1996. And the pages within this particular journal that this article was in is page 41 through 50. Okay, so don't be confused with the amount of information that you have to present. Just understand where they go within the system, and then just plug in the information as you find it, and also keep in mind the proper formatting, okay, with the periods and the commas and quotation marks and so forth. Okay, this is the format for a website, which is the most popular kind of citation I'm noticing these days. So you probably want to know this one the most. The weird thing about citing a website is that oftentimes some of the information that we expect is missing. Okay, we can't find it. So let's see. The formatting. The format is usually the editor, the author, or the compiler's name, if you can find it. The name of the site. You should be able to find the name of the site. The version number. That I'm noticing you can't find as easily, but sometimes you'll find it at the bottom of a particular web page. The name of institution, organization affiliated with the site, a sponsor or publisher. You're normally looking for a publisher, some governing body over it, and then the date of resource creation, if that's available. Oftentimes you'll be citing, let's say, CNN, and you'll want to know what day that particular article was created. Okay. The medium of publication is different. It's web, because we're looking at the web now, right? And then the date of access. The date of access is when you, the researcher, went and found this particular web page. Okay? So for the example here, we have Guide to Literary and Critical Theory, which looks like an online book because it's in italics. And the publisher was Purdue University. This particular web entry was produced on November 28th on the year 2003. The format is web, obviously. And in the case of the citation, this particular researcher found this resource on May the 10th, 2006. Okay? So it can get a little difficult, and there are other types of citations. I don't know, a brochure, or you might want to do personal interviews. Those sorts of things you should be able to find in your textbook. So go and look in the proper pages of your textbook, and you can find the citation or the citation guide format. You can also look at the Purdue OWL. Just Google Purdue OWL, and you'll be able to find proper MLA citation guidelines there as well. Okay? Also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.